special committee of the whole meetings on March 23rd, and it's item 7.2.2. And it is a resolution from the committee that says that council supports staff entering into a shared service agreement with the SCRD for building official level 3 services to support the town. You recall that conversation we had at the time? That should have been part of the minutes. It is not part of the minutes, so that we need to add that in as 7.2.2. When we receive those minutes, that should be part of that minutes. So that being said, that's the only amendment I have. Does anybody else have anything to add to the agenda? So motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, thank you. All in favor of approval of the agenda? Thank you. Adoption of minutes. We have the minutes of the regular council meeting March 16, 2021. Recommendation they be adopted. Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Any business arising from those minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to delegations now. Corporate officer, is our delegation present? Did they manage to get back in?
I'm looking. I think I see. Just one moment while I check.
Loretta is there.
I see her.
Yeah. I'm thinking of getting some feedback from somewhere.
I have one phone-in caller, and I think that might be.
Okay, Ms. Macklem, yeah, thank you. I see you there. Is the other member of the delegation present? You're still muted. There you go.
Sharon Damroth is at my house, and she's going to start first.
Thank you very much. Sharon, welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
So I'm Sharon Danroth, and I am a second generation born in Roberts Creek. I lived in Calgary and Victoria, and I returned to the coast in 1972. When I moved to Pratt Road in 1987, I became involved in trying to save Gospel Rock lands. At first, the Friends of Gospel Rock wanted to buy block 3, 6, and 7. We gave up a lot of territory along the way. Since time immemorial, this has been a place, a gathering place, a meeting place, a lookout, a destination, a place for ceremony, a place to pray, to wildcraft, photograph, a place to celebrate. We were told a story by a Squamish storyteller that after the flood, the first person was born in Gospel Rock, called Checkwelp then. It remained a place to go to until the implementation of the latest chain link fence. Now all humans except the workers, and most importantly, all wildlife are locked out. How can a wildlife corridor exist after years of being fenced off? In looking at all the documents we've saved, not burned as planned because of COVID, what finally coalesced was the great love felt by so many people, not just for the Greenbelt area saved, but for the entire upper bluff of Block 7. The hours and hours of work by people like Catherine McManus, who spent thousands of hours on all aspects, from organizing fundraisers to arguing through public hearing after public hearing to save natural systems, drainage issues, and protecting wildlife. So many community members who worked at raising funds and awareness. We made birdhouses to sell, had a fashion show, decorated floats for Sea Cab Parade, hosted dinners, a fair, a gala affair for launching Loretta's movie, and so much more. Lots of fundraising, and always the big money people would say, is your town behind it? We couldn't say yes. Our museum has a printout of Gospel Rock, and it talks about the history of people using the place. Easter church service on the promontory. A quote from Lester Peterson's book, "There are many numbers who take the walk again and again and never weary of the rugged beauty of the scene." Rosamond Greer stated, "Our evening strolls took us up to Gospel Rock, a short distance from the village. There we would sit atop the rock and watch the sunset in fiery splendor. These references provide evidence that Gospel Rock has historically been used by the community recreation gathering place for close to a century. The appearance of Gospel Rock in the literature of well-known Canadian author Robert Watson was attributed to Watson's summer vacations to the site. Writer and educator Robbie Kidd, who founded the phenomenon of continuing education, also spent summers in Gibsons Landing, and later in life credited Gospel Rock to be his spiritual home when life became challenging. The 2006 Heritage Register notes that Gospel Rock is a site of primary significance. Gospel Rock achieves this designation for its historical association, cultural association, ecological importance, and the importance to the community. Town of Gibsons, 2006. In 2011, under the heading Gospel Rock Saga, Barry Janet wrote, "Given the exceptional status of these lands, surely council has a responsibility to ensure that they be developed respectfully by those who truly comprehend their history, their local significance, and the reverence in which the local community has held them for thousands of years." One thing we can all agree upon is that this is exactly what has not happened. The whole Back to Nature slogan puts the lie to this development that has so far annihilated all nature up there. I had a question: how much of the DPA has been cut and why is it not included in the covenanted area? This was determined in a court case between the town and Hayden Killam. I quote Catherine McManus. As mentioned in the first analysis of Development Permit Area 1, protection of the environment from geotechnical hazards, designation for the Block 7 slope, the town is locked into the documents and arguments they used to prevail in that court case against Hayden Killam. They proved to the judge's satisfaction that there was enough evidence of geotechnical hazards to prohibit any further tree removal, which leads me to ask why Mr. Newman is quoted in the Reporter as saying they didn't apply for a permit, but we had one ready for them. I was going to read off the list of birds that we had, but I won't do that. There were more than 100 different birds that have totally lost. They're probably dead. Where are they going to go? The alligator lizard, there was supposed to be a study to determine where it was, but it was obviously up on the bluff, but it's not there. Another question about Calander Creek. Is it listed as a creek? Does it become a not creek when it comes into Gibsons? Because that creek, if it's used for the roadway, is just going to endanger all the houses down below that. And the drainage. There's a big pond at the top. Where's that draining to? There's so many questions about this. I'll leave it for Loretta
Thank you very much.
at this point.
Thank
Thank you. Well, this is, I don't know if you can see it or not, but this is a picture of the pond, all that water at the top, above the dryland forest. Thanks.
Loretta, thank you. Now, I see you have about 7 minutes left, or 3 minutes left. And then
Okay. Okay. Good evening, Mayor Beamish and council members. My name is Loretta Macklem, second generation, born and grew up here on the Sunshine Coast. I have seen a lot of changes living here throughout my life. My grandparents lived on Gower Point Road, just below Gospel Rock. We would walk through trails and around to Pratt Road often. That's why I'm so passionate about Gospel Rock. For over 100 years, the entire property has been used extensively by the public while privately owned. In 1925, a phone book even had an advertisement saying, "Go for a picnic on Gospel Rock." I feel the need to speak to you tonight about Gospel Rock, an area which has been and still is so important and prominent to the Gibsons community. It is truly a crown jewel. It is vital for our air we breathe, the wildlife, humans, and the biology of the planet to live a healthy life. It is so sad what has become of it. I've been at a few public meetings for Gospel Rock and have heard hundreds of people speak up for Gospel Rock, speaking their truth, trying to protect the area for nature. I know from experience it's scary to get up and speak about something you love in front of an audience. Hundreds of volunteers have spent time and energy trying to protect Gospel Rock. It's been documented as a heritage site and included in the town registry, an inventory document describing its significance culturally and environmentally. I'm also concerned about the dryland forest, wondering if it'll stay intact now that the top of Gospel Rock has been logged. Seeing what has happened so far with this developer, I implore you to keep the stop work order in place until the town has absolute certainty no further damages will be done. I hope council will make a decision about this. This place of land is extra special. I hope you will find it in your hearts to really look at the possibilities to help save the land. It's worth standing up for it's our duty. We are all responsible to do the right thing for our planet. Miracles do happen. Sometimes we just need to be a part to let them unfold. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your passionate presentation. Yeah, you kind of wonder how we got here. I've been present or privy to two presentations of the council recommending the council purchase Gospel Rock, and neither one of them were successful. And so here we are now talking about how to develop it, so that it would be nice if it was back. I don't even recall Councillor Goldsmith at the time and George Smith. The three of us made a presentation to council at the time with a plan to purchase Gospel Rock, and it unfortunately the preference was for development at the time, which is and a subsequent presentation I'm aware of was also made and turned back by council. So that gives it to us to have to manage the development. So it's a challenge. But thank you very much for your information, your presentation. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, with that, appreciate that. We'll move on then to the next part of our agenda, and that is inquiries. The inquiries tonight on any aspect of the any items that are on the council agenda for discussion. Loretta, we'll say goodbye to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You have Suzanne Sanger joining you.
Thank you. And this is the question you were going to ask earlier, isn't it? When I so rudely cut you off this afternoon.
No, hi everybody. Nope, this isn't the same question actually. I have to say I'm really moved to hear Loretta and Sharon speak. I've heard them both speak on many occasions in our community on the significance of Gospel Rock. And I just want to say, just because I'm following after those two amazing women, you know, there are grandmothers in our community that have been working to protect Gospel Rock since I was in elementary school. And I got involved in 2004 and have been involved ever since. And when the town...
You have to have a question.
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor, I really do. I just think, you know, there's been a lot of not talking about what happened, and I think we need to stop that. So, Mr. Mayor, at a meeting in January between yourself and Councillor Lumley and our chair of the SCCA and Director Wareham, the town and the organization agreed to work together to resolve some issues that are still left around the conservation covenant and the conservation of the dryland forest on Block 7. On March 16th, council committed to figure out how to amend the environmentally sensitive area boundary. On March 19th, the SCCA wrote a letter to the town expressing our support for that commitment and offering to work together to achieve that goal with the town. On March 22nd, you were confirmed by the local weekly that you had made that offer to the SCCA and TLC, and that we had accepted that offer to meet with the town, but you were just waiting for the developer to confirm their willingness to meet with us. So we haven't heard back from the town about when that meeting is set to take place. And so my question is, would you please let me know if there's some reason why we haven't heard back from you about that meeting, and when we should expect to receive an invitation to a meeting with the town and Green Lane and TLC and SCCA to further that conversation?
Yeah, we did have, and we do have the correspondence both from the Conservation Association and TLC confirming their willingness to participate in a meeting. I have not received anything from Green Lane yet. We are still, because our planner was away 2 weeks ago, for just back last week for a short week. We have not, we're going to receive the letter that we received from Leanne Johnson. That'll be received tonight, and the planner will review that and give a report back to us. I think we're probably in a position that I'll go back to Green Lane and ask him again. I understand that he may want to meet with us. I only understand this through staff, that he may want to meet with council separately first before he has a joint meeting. And I'll confirm that with him. And as soon as we can arrange, I mean, it'd be great if we could all sit down at a table and find a path forward. Absolutely. That's what we would hope to do. The challenge is sometimes we just have to kind of get to that point when everybody is able to sit down and talk to one another. And hopefully we're getting to that very soon. So I will follow up with the developer this week, my commitment, and I will report back as to when he is available to meet.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Having a timeline is so important. So I really appreciate your commitment to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, we have a Harriet Hunter joining us.
Thank you. Ms. Hunter, if you're trying to speak, you're on mute right now. You should be okay now. You're off mute.
Oh, okay. I don't have to get on right now. Actually, my question is a bit redundant because I was concerned about the truth of what's going on there, but I realized from Loretta's and Sharon Damroth's presentation that something is being done about Gospel Rock. I'm concerned that so much dry forest was cut down after the bylaw was passed and with no permit, but hopefully we as citizens will get answers to this. And my question would have been about the cutting of the dry forest. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We now have Judith Bonkoff joining you. Oh, what's happening?
Get some feedback noise.
Okay, I've got it.
Yeah.
Now I
Yeah.
see if I can do video. Oh, here I am. Okay. So finally you get to look at me. Lucky you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. And this is just back to the Gospel Rock thing again, in that this afternoon I asked the question, but it wasn't really the appropriate time. Still really very disturbed about all of this, in that, you know, the town goes ahead and passes a bylaw for tree preservation, and we see all of this annihilation of all the trees, and then you know, we all sucked it up and said, oh well, I guess. But then we find out later that there's nothing, that there most likely wasn't a permit, and I'm wondering how that happened. And I've read the report that's enclosed in the agenda later. Are you there?
We're here, yes.
Okay, because I don't have your picture at all, sorry.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm wondering how we got to this place, and I hear that there's going to be a report, so I'm going to just leave it at that, but just let you know how distressing it is for everybody, because it's been such a shock to see what's happened up there, and then to have this on top of that. I'd also like to know why the town, I mean, this just keeps on happening, why the town allows we'll say cutting of the trees in this case, destroying all those houses down on the George site before they issue a building permit. A building permit shouldn't, you should not allow any destruction until a building permit is issued. To me, it's wrong and it causes trouble. And if this is deserted later, we have a great big flat patch of nothing instead of our trees. And we have a bunch of empty lots down below on the waterfront and mess compared to what we had. And it's not right. And I just thought I'd let you know that. I don't expect an answer. It's just that I think council and the town staff, everybody needs to figure it out and make it more systematic so that this kind of thing doesn't happen to us again.
Thank you.
And that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll be pleased to talk to you about the building permit issue offline if you want to call me. It's a part of process. There's nothing to build yet until you actually have the subdivision and all the infrastructure in place. Those aren't building permit issues. So,
well, there should be some sort of bond, something, because it doesn't hold them to account.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we got possibly time for one more. Corporate officer, is there anybody else?
No, there are no further people with questions at this time.
Thank you. Thank you for all those who asked questions, and we'll move on to committee reports. At this time, we're going to ask for a resolution to receive all reports and resolutions and correspondence and bylaws so that we can get them on the table. Councilor Crowell, thank you. Councilor Diandrad, thank you. Okay, moving to committee reports, 7.1, committee of the whole meeting, March 16th. Recommendation that the minutes of the meeting be received. Councilor Crowell, Councilor Lumley, thank you. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. Special council meeting, budget meeting on March 23rd. There are two resolutions arising. Well, first of all, that the minutes be received, and secondly, that council support staff entering into a shared service agreement with the SCRD for building official level 3 services to support the town. So make those, Councilor Crowell, Councilor Lumley, all in favor? Thank you. Special committee meeting budget of March 29. Recommendation the minutes be received. Councilor Crowell, Councilor Diandrad, thank you. All in favor? Receipt, thank you. And preliminary budget, general operation and capital, a recommendation that 2021 tax rates be prepared, authorizing an overall 7% increase, 5% of which is relating to future policing costs, and that the 2021-2025 financial plan and 2021 annual tax rate bylaw be prepared for council approval. Councilor Crowell, Councilor Ladwig, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And 7.33, that council direct staff to come back with options to include costs and timelines for departmental and or organizational and service review in 2021. Is there more? Councilor Diandrad, thank you. Seconded by, not seconded yet. I'll second it. Discussion? All in favor? Okay, that's approved. Thank you. Administration reports. Director of Finance, Parcel Tax Roll Panel, Water Sewer, Community Recreation, Parcel Tax. Director of Finance, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is an annual process you're probably familiar with from last year. So every year the Parcel Tax Review Panel must meet before a parcel tax can be imposed on a property for the first time. The panel must be at least 3 people, and past practice has been that all council members sit on the panel. In advance of the panel, we will mail out notices to affected owners. We also advertise in the paper in advance of the meeting, advising of the date and the time, and this is all as per the community charter regulations or legislation. And so this report today is just requesting that a parcel tax panel, a review panel be held on Tuesday, May 4th, 2 o'clock. So this is just part of the committee of the whole meeting that day, and that all council be appointed to sit on the panel. And once that recommendation is passed, then we start the process to get the items in place for that panel review. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would somebody care to move that? Councilor Crowell, thank you. Councilor Ladwig, thank you very much. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, Tuesday, May the 4th.
Thank you.
The next three are development variance permit applications. Council, we're going to take them fairly slowly because there is people who want to speak to them, and there's additional information to be provided by staff. So we'll go through, and the first one is for development variance permit 2021-02 for 417 Alder Spring. And who would like to speak to that? Planner one?
I can speak to that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. So the town received a DVP application at 417 Alder Springs Road requesting to reduce the rear setback from 7.5 meters to 1.5 meters to allow the construction of a breezeway to attach an existing cottage to a new home as a secondary suite. The subject property is zoned R2, and currently there is an existing 550 square foot house situated entirely within the rear 7.5 meter setback and sits almost on the rear property line. The property owner would like to construct a new house on the property conforming to all regulations in the zoning bylaw, including setbacks, height, and lot coverage. However, the property would like to retain rental income. The owner has requested a variance to allow for the breezeway to be constructed between the existing house and the proposed new house to create a secondary suite. The application was referred to the Building Department, Infrastructure Services, and Fire Department, and there are no concerns regarding the variance request. Letters were mailed and hand-delivered to neighbors within 50 meters of the subject property. One submission was received yesterday. I forwarded the submission and the subsequent staff response to council this afternoon for review as a late item. The submission asked questions pertaining to construction impacts, length of construction, and the noise bylaw. The submission neither opposed nor supported the application. Has council had an opportunity to read that submission, or would you like me to share my screen and share it?
Council, have you had a chance to read it? Okay. Okay. It appears it's been read, so thank you.
Okay, so I won't read it out then. The draft variance is enclosed as attachment A and is to be specific to the breezeway, allowing the breezeway to be located 1.5 meters from the rear lot line. The proposed new house would have to conform to the 7.5 meter rear setback as per the R2 zoning regulations. So staff requests that the mayor offer an opportunity for persons affected by this development variance permit application to be heard before considering the authorization of the permit for Alder Springs.
Thank you. And Director, can we be assured that you will respond to the questions that were raised in the letter that was received?
Yes. What I forwarded was the memo with the submissions and the staff response.
Okay, then I would like to provide an opportunity for any other persons affected by DVP 2021-02 to be heard. Please make yourself known to the corporate officer at this time if you wish to speak. I see Nancy Hughes there. Are you speaking for or against the application, Ms. Hughes?
Actually, I am the applicant, so I'm just viewing.
Yes.
Thanks. I'm for it.
Okay, I'll put you down.
Thank you.
Corporate officer, is there anybody else?
I see no hands raised at this time.
Okay, so council, what's your wishes? Somebody would like to make a recommendation? Councilor Kroll, we move the recommendation that the DVP 2021-02 to reduce the rear setback, allow for a breezeway be approved. Okay.
I move that.
Second that. Councilor Lumley, thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor D'Andrade?
I fully agree with the project. I'm just concerned with one thing, with it's the timeline. Do we have do we need to meet a specific timeline requirement? Just because, for example, we had 2 holidays between when the letters were issued. There's still 1 day or depends on 2 days. Maybe a person checks the mailbox just once a week. So maybe she checked just the day before the letter came in. So I'm just concerned. And then by the time a person gets the letter, they might not have time for immediate feedback. Perhaps the person doesn't have a computer. So I'm just wondering, it seems that it's 2 weeks, but it's not actually 2 weeks. So do we have a requirement that we have to meet?
Corporate officer?
I can speak to that,
Yes, go ahead.
Mayor. So there is a legislated requirement to notify neighbors. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it's something like 10 days before the decision of council. So when we put letters out, we look at our calendars and we basically work backwards. We count backwards from the next council meeting to make sure we meet all the legislated requirements.
Okay.
That matches with what the planner and what she told me today. The 10 days.
Thank you, corporate officer. Okay, heard the motion. All in favor of the motion? Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Hughes. You have your variance.
Ah, well, thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate that.
Thank you. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, by the way. Yeah.
Thank
you. Okay, we'll go on next to the temporary use permit, DVP 201901, and this is an amendment renewal for 1018 Gibsons Way, and then it also authorizes a second tent to be used for temporary use. So, Gain, Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to provide council with feedback on the Gibsons Recycling Depot's request to use a second tent to shelter an expanded cardboard baling at its facility temporarily, and to renew the temporary use permit for a second and final 3-year term. The Committee of the Whole considered this application on March 16th and directed staff to post a notification in the newspaper and notify neighbors of the application and of the date of council's decision, and a sign was also posted to the property. 3 letters were received in response to this notification. 2 were in support of the application, which are attached to the agenda, while 1 was in opposition, raising concerns about view impacts of tents in the industrial area. The 3rd letter was received after the agenda was published, and I also emailed that to Mayor and Council. Did you have an opportunity to read that, or would you like me to present it and show the pictures?
I would appreciate if you presented. I did not read that one.
Okay, I'll just open that up and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so this is just a memo to council. The town received 1 comment regarding the request to amend and renew a temporary use permit for tents at the Gibsons Recycling Depot after the staff report was published. The submission and staff's response are attached. The submission raised concerns about the use of tents north of Venture Way and their view impacts. So I'll start with the letter and then the staff response. Hello, Kirsten. Thank you for the opportunity to offer feedback on this matter. We live in a west-facing second-floor townhome at Park Road. I would prefer not to see another tent added to our view. I've included a handful of pictures that show the current view from every room in our home, except the bathroom and our balcony. When we moved or retired to Gibsons in January 2015, our view was quite different than it is today. We currently have 8 tents in our sight lines. It surprised me when I read that tents were not allowed in the Gibsons light industrial zone. The north side of Venture Way is almost all tents. Some are very large, some are dirty, some flap around in the wind, and all do very little to contain the noise generated by these thriving businesses. Please let me know if you would like any additional information. And so here are some pictures.
Could you stop, go back, well, I guess stop there, one picture there. Oh, go up one there, yes. So what we're looking at, and Tyler, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I see you're there. The two lower tents are on your property, or there's three lower tents on your property, and the one very large tent on neighbors. Is that what we're seeing?
Can you hear me there, Bill?
Can hear you now, Tyler. Yeah.
Yeah, so only one of those is ours.
Okay.
The silver one in the background, you've got two Coastal Crafts, and then I believe the large white one furthest back is GBS.
Okay.
So that's the back of our property. Any of the photos that she sent through there, none of the photos that she's shown view where we're putting up the new tent. But it's nice to see that, so it makes me aware of what someone is having to look at back there.
Yes, yes, and it is. And is that the GBS yard, or is that your yard we're seeing?
That's the GBS yard, and we share a fence. The other thing that may have increased is in the left side, all the Genie lifts and so on from Rental Equip, which is a new business there in the back, as well as the construction site to her left is really active.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Director of Planning.
No problem. Do you want me to read the staff response or?
Please go ahead.
Okay. Barbara, thank you for your letter sharing your feedback and concerns about tents in the light industrial area of Gibsons. Your concerns are much appreciated, and the town is working with many of the businesses in the area to improve the situation and ensure that current and future businesses are developed within buildings. Your letter will be shared with council at tonight's meeting in a verbal presentation from the Director of Planning prior to the decision on the recycling depot's application.
Thank you.
And then I've got a few more closing remarks on here. So referrals were made to the fire department, the town of Gibson's building department, and infrastructure services, and all three responded with no comments or no concerns. My apologies. Recommendations are on page 1 of the report. Staff are requesting that the mayor offer an opportunity for persons affected by this application to be heard before considering the authorization of an extension. Council is asked to provide a decision on the amendment to the forming character DP to include a second tent, the amendment to the TUP to include a second tent, and the renewal of the TUP for a second and final term of 3 years, effective at the expiry of the current permit. So that would extend the temporary use permit to May 2nd, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I will, before we go for comments, I will ask if anybody else, any person who feels affected by this application would like to be heard. Please make yourself known to our corporate officer at this time.
I see no hands raised, Mayor Beamish.
Before we go to the resolutions, from those pictures, you can see the challenge of the interface between residential and commercial, or in this case, light industrial. And now, as Mr. Nygaard mentioned, I was up at the Greenway site yesterday, and there are now all these rental units that have moved in there into one of the new buildings, and they are tall, and they are also going to be part of that viewscape. The tree you saw there in that picture between that property and the Gibsons building supply will likely be gone, because that's going to be a pathway through that section there connecting to Parkland. So that area is going to be pathway coming through there, connects into the light industrial. And I guess what I'm wondering is, how can we better buffer the industrial, light industrial and residential, so that you will possibly all recall that was a fairly well-treated site at one point in time. And then suddenly it was clear cut, as is wont to do. And then now we're putting buildings up, but we're also in those buildings or in that light industrial area, we're putting equipment, we're putting noise, we're putting more visuals than most of us would want to see when we look out our window. And one of the things I'm thinking is that in these tree cutting incidents we're getting around town, we're also looking for compensation of trees. And I wonder if there's an opportunity there to plant some of those trees, whether they are appropriately height as a buffer between the residential and the industrial in that area. And it might be something we want to consider, because it is become almost indeterminate where the residential stops and the industrial begins, because it really is only now separated by a asphalt path. And then where it used to be separated by even blackberries that used to grow up in there, but the blackberries are going too. So Councillor Ladwig, I see your hand.
Not that I disagree with you, but I'm pretty sure that planting along that pathway would have been included in the landscape plan for that development, for that industrial site anyway.
I don't think it is between the back of the GBS site. I think it's and then we got others. So, but I'll go to the Director of Planning. I shouldn't speak if I don't know the answer. Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor. So where we have received a development permit for forming character, a DP application, we look at the landscaping at that time. So we do have landscaping for the new apartments and new live work area, and for a portion of that 1018 property. But they only got a DP for half of that site. And I don't recall a DP for the GBS site.
Yeah.
So until they come in or put together a development proposal, at that point, we would ask for screening.
Something to think about as to how we can buffer that area. Councillor Ladwig?
I do think that, or I would recommend that part of our review of the tree bylaw is that we look at a plan for future plantings, whether it's this site or wherever. We should develop a plan for that.
You'll see with parkland, there's actually quite a large berm between the residential development, and the GPS site. So you actually can't see over that berm to see all those buildings. But the park road development looks directly now into the industrial site. Councillor Kroll?
I agree that moving forward, we should look at opportunities to create green buffers, but it's interesting because when the first development on Park Road occurred, they literally built to the property lines, knowing that they were abutting an area that was zoned light industrial. So, it's one of these things, and I don't mean this in a derogatory sense or a negative sense. I certainly empathize with the letter, but it's like people who build beside the airport and then complain about the noise. The industrial area was there, although not fully developed, when the residential complexes on Park Road went in. And those developers, didn't totally take into consideration what they were building up against. But I certainly would be all in favor, with the new committee that's been formed. I think, anything that comes up, we need to look at how we can, create better buffers between residential and light industrial.
Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, I have to agree with Councillor Kroll. There's a little bit of buyer beware, but after the developer had cleared the industrial way area and his permits or his variants were still going through council, I can remember people that all of a sudden, once all those trees were cleared, they had a view of like an endless view of the ocean.
For a little while, yeah.
They were the ones that were against the heights and stuff of the new development. So it's just kind of like, okay, well, I think that the best thing we could do is just make it as comfortable as we can. As a council, like just try and make it as best they can. But people, you have to realize you are, like Councillor Kroll said, you're living on the edge of an industrial site. So things are going to happen for sure. and people are operating with pretty skinny budgets now, right? So, I mean, a tent, yeah, would it be better if they had the money to build like a beautiful structure and it'd be pretty to look at? But these days, people got to do what they do to make a living. So that's my thoughts.
I'm looking to move on. Councillor Crowley, do you have anything to add? Do you want to move the recommendation?
Well, just very quickly, sir, the Gibsons Recycle Depot is operating on leased land. So until they know what their ultimate future is, you can hardly expect them to invest in in Councillor Lumley's beautiful building. So I think it is the intent of Tyler to see what their future holds, whether it's on that site or another site. But for the service they provide to the community, I would hate to see any further impacts on their efficiency.
I think that the writer of that letter was not talking just about the Gibsons Recycling, talking about the plethora of tents that's up there, and not all of which are on leased land. So, yeah. Okay, somebody care to make move the recommendations or Councillor Crowell, you'll move the recommendations for the amendment of TUP 2019 to include a second tent within temporary permit use and a second 3-year term effective May 2, 2022. Seconded by Councillor D'Andrade. Further discussion? All in favor? Yeah. Thank you. Tyler, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice night.
Thank you. Okay, going on to our agenda. Next one is the, let's turn my page. The 588 North Fletcher, DVP 2021-03. Back to the Director of Planning.
Hi, sorry about that.
It's all right.
I got booted out of the meeting.
You went home, yeah.
I'm back. Okay, so 588 South Fletcher. This is a DVP, another development variance permit application requesting to reduce the rear setback for an existing dwelling to allow for a lot line adjustment. So it's a subdivision where they want to move the lot line over and it's a little bit closer to the existing house. The property is zoned R3 and the owner owns both 586 North Fletcher and 588 North Fletcher and would like to undergo a lot line adjustment to remove the existing panhandle connection to 588 North Fletcher and develop a new driveway access off Gibsons Way to provide direct access to the home, as shown in Figure 1 on the staff report. When undergoing a subdivision, all lots must conform to the town's bylaws. The R3 zone requires a rear setback of 7.5 meters. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a variance to relax the setback from 7.5 meters to 3.85 meters for the existing home. Should the existing home be demolished, a new home would need to be built in conformance with the setbacks outlined in the zoning bylaw. The application was referred to the Building Department, Infrastructure Services, and Fire Department, and there are no concerns regarding the variance request. Letters were mailed and hand-delivered to neighbors within 50 meters of the subject property, and an on-site notification sign was posted. We received one letter of support enclosed as attachment B. The draft variance is enclosed as attachment A and specific to the single-family dwelling outlined in the proposed subdivision plan attached to the permit. Staff are requesting that the mayor offers an opportunity for persons affected by this application to be heard before considering authorization of the permit for 588 North Fletcher. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will do that now, that provide an opportunity for any persons affected by DVP 2021-03 to be heard. Please make yourself known. And Christy and Jason, are you to be heard or are you the applicant?
We're the applicants.
Okay, then welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you own the house immediately behind, don't you?
Correct.
So you don't have any objection from the back?
No, we're okay with it.
Anybody else coming forward?
No one else is coming forward, Mayor Beamish.
Council, what is your wishes? Councilor Crowell,
Make the motion as recommended by
with the
staff.
recommendation to issue DVP 2103, seconded by Councilor Lumley. All in favor? Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us, Christy and Jason. You have the variance.
Great. Thank you very much, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, council, next item on the agenda is a report from the Director of Infrastructure Services on tree damage in ESA Block 7, Gospel Rock. Mr. Newman, would you like to introduce your report?
Oh, okay, there we go. Yes, Mayor Beamish, I'm happy to speak to it. It's fairly brief, and I believe everyone's read it. Would you like me to just take questions, or do you want me to go into it further?
No, for those people who do not have an agenda in front of them, perhaps you should go into it, please.
No problem. So the question put to myself was the damage to tree damage in the environmentally sensitive area of Block 7, and a summary of kind of the events in regards to the specific incident was that town staff met Taurus Consulting on Block 7 on November 16th to understand the next steps for the project. And at that meeting, staff advised that prior to any cutting in the development permit areas, a tree cutting permit notice would be issued for posting on site, conveying to the public that trees were being removed with the town's knowledge and permission, and that Diamond Head, the other condition was that Diamond Head Consulting would be on site in accordance with the development permit that was issued. On December 21st, town staff met with Taurus Consulting again, as well as Diamond Head Consulting, to develop a plan for the remaining tree cutting on site. And at that meeting, it was determined that tree cutting had commenced without DHC, Diamond Head, being on site in accordance with the requirements of the development permit, and also without confirmation of the trees to be cut or the tree cutting permit or notice being posted on site. And a stop work order was subsequently issued by the Director of Planning. January 18th, 2021, the site was revisited by DHC with an updated survey to determine the extent of the clearing that occurred. It was then established that no trees within the ESA or planned park had been removed. However, damage to 3 trees was observed within the designated ESA as detailed below. And for anyone who doesn't have that in front of them, the 2 trees along the established ESA edge by the planned townhouse lot showed minor damage, and DHC recommended that the trees be retained and monitor at future site visits. And then 1 felled tree was hung up in a protected tree within the environmentally sensitive area, causing some minor scarring. And DHC said that this can be mitigated by completing the falling of the tree that was hung up on site. Fines that will be levied under the tree permit was damaging a protected tree, with a total of 3 and a unit cost of $300, so a total fine of $900. And it's now, the developers understood that for whatever reason things went sideways on the tree cutting, and the requirements of the development permit area was or the development permit was not they didn't abide by that. So moving forward, no additional tree removal is to occur until the stop work order has been lifted. Any further tree cutting on block 7 will require a tree permit moving forward. This requirement has also been extended to any further tree removal in either DPA 1 or 2, and also covers trees that were addressed in the environmental development permit that was issued. DHC must be contacted prior to the start of any further tree removal, to determine if monitoring is required and what those requirements may be. And DHC will also determine trees in conflict with the proposed infrastructure that requires removal and retention requirements for trees that can be retained. There's going to be some additional development permit requirements regarding blasting, installation of fencing, and geotechnical measures. And these activities are only to proceed under DHC supervision to ensure that the existing trees and understory vegetation in the environmentally sensitive area are protected from further impact. I think that pretty much covers the memo, and so I'm more than happy to take any questions that council may have.
Councilor Ludwig.
Thank you, Director of Infrastructure. Can you please just confirm my understanding of this issue? And if I'm wrong, correct it. So all the trees that were cut down in the Douglas Fir Arbutus Coastal Dryland Forest area, the developer was authorized to cut through his DP. Is that correct?
Yes and no. And I may ask the Director of Planning to chip in if I go astray here. The tree cutting that occurred within the development permit area was addressed by the development permit. There's an area that was determined to be part of the same ecosystem as the dryland forest. However, it was not in the established boundaries of the environmentally sensitive area.
I understand that. So that's why I didn't call it the environmentally sensitive area.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there is some confusion about that for sure.
Right. Setting that aside, it was not identified as part of the environmental sensitive area, right or wrong. It wasn't.
Yeah, correct.
So the area that the developer cut, he was authorized to do. Whether people support that decision and how that unfolded, but was he or was he not authorized to do that?
He was.
Yes, that's
yeah. So he although he did, as I say, he was to the trees that he cut. He was to have
on-site
DHC on site. That was the issue.
Yep, understood. Okay, so that's great. So that clarifies that one question for me. The second question is, as it stands right now, or when that cutting was done, did that DP permit, the individual did not need a tree cutting permit under the tree bylaw because the DP covered tree cutting?
So that's correct. The tree bylaw has an exemption as it is currently written, an exemption for trees
that are within the development area.
No, the wording is where the removal of the trees have been addressed in a development permit. And so in this case, the area of trees outside of the development permit area that were cut were addressed in Diamond Head's report that was part of the development permit that was issued. And so therefore, that, I guess, preempted the tree bylaw. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So thank you. So those two. Okay. So those are my two assumptions, and they're correct. Okay. I just really wanted to have that stated for members in the audience, just to provide some clarity on those two issues, because I keep hearing questions around, you know, why he didn't have a tree cutting permit for those trees that he cut down, and why such a large portion of the ESA was cut. And I just thought it was important for people to understand that the individual, whether and whether or not that should have happened, you know, that's a whole nother conversation. But I just felt it was important that the public understand that the developer had approval to cut the trees that he cut. Whether we now wish he had or not is another matter, but he had approval to do so. So I just, okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Andrade.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. When I see the title of this tree damage in ESA, I find it confusing because ESA is a terminology stipulated by the province, which is about any area or of environmental value that is worth our retention and special care. That's what an ESA is. And they could be a different ecosystem, whatever it is, rare or whatever it is. So ESA is a rough terminology. In our case, we have a dryland forest. But this memorandum specify the area that was protected under the DPA too. So I think the subject should be tree damage in DPA 2 ESA, because that's when only 3 trees. Yes, that's correct. If you change the title, tree damage in DPA 2 ESA, it is correct. But the area outside of the DSA of the DPA 2 ESA was protected under the tree bylaw. And we know that.
No, it wasn't.
We got expert advice. So I don't understand why we are having this conversation, and that really frustrates me.
I'm unclear about it not falling under the tree bylaw. One point of clarification, I couldn't comment on the use of ESA, but I agree that that is being a source of confusion because the covenanted area does not neatly fall over the development permit area. The boundaries of the two, while they're largely encompassed, the development permit is largely encompassed by the covenanted area. They don't exactly overlap. And on top of that, there is a section outside of the area protected by covenant and outside of the development permit area, both of them, that was established as you say, ESA. And so perhaps my title, I shouldn't use that. I should use the covenanted area, but it's one of those terms I think that is perhaps led to some of this, some concerns by members of the public.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Newman. And council, we've received that report. There was no recommendation for action. We'll go on now to council reports, a chance for councilors to provide a report. And I'm going to go to Councilor Kroll first.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I guess, and just looking at the time, I will keep it brief. I've been involved ongoing with the CAT committee meetings, and there's a new chair of the CAT committee, so the whole CAT committee is going through a bit of adjustment, but there is a greater focus by the community on, the concentration was in Seashelt because of the location of the supportive housing and all the shelters. They are focusing resources in our community now that the supportive housing is up and running. So I had a meeting with them on the 17th. On the 18th of March, I covered the Planning and Community Development Committee meeting at the regional district. But the only thing that I think might be of interest that came out of that is TELUS are putting in a new communication tower up by Twin Creeks, which is going to help with cell reception. Gambier Island up towards Port Mellon, and certainly providing better coverage to mariners in that area. Also at the same meeting was the ice costs and concern for skaters and hockey teams. There was going to be about a $60,000 tax increase to cover ice, and the board resolved that they couldn't really justify keeping ice in for an additional period at a cost of $60,000. So ice will be coming out, I believe, shortly. On the 31st, I attended a presentation by Fortis, how they're partnering and acting with towards climate change. Some people felt it was a bit of greenwashing, but Fortis do put out a fairly good argument for the infrastructure that they have in place. If it's upgraded to higher standards, which is fairly easily done, they can meet, work with BC Hydro to meet some of the climate standards we're looking at. The big event was the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at the Gibsons Legion. On Good Friday, I had the team from the Gibsons Public Market who normally work in the community kitchen there. They came and helped prepare scalloped potatoes to the tune of about 150 pounds of potatoes, onions, celery, and lots of cream and butter. So kudos to them. We had another team in on Saturday, yourself included, along with your wife and a couple of other people, to set up the hall. And then on the 4th, we served 342 meals. Kudos to Elphinstone. We had 11 students out helping serve. Councillor Lumley was driving around delivering meals. Hopefully he got them there promptly and didn't eat any en route. But it was an amazing community gathering. I've had some feedback from community members who were really happy with the meals they received, and just general feedback from people who participated, who really enjoyed the thing. Late this afternoon, I had a letter from the Legion thanking us for allowing them to be part of it, and they were very pleased with the way we left the Legion. There was a bit of uncooked potato, uncooked onion, and a few other ingredients that have been turned over to the soup kitchen at the Salvation Army. So that's about it for me.
And Councillor Crowell's really not shining much of a light on himself, because he did an absolutely excellent job organizing the kitchen and all of the food. And Councillor Crowell, thank you for that. And he doesn't leave until he's the last person out. He shuts the lights off. And really appreciate that commitment to the community, Councillor Crowell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else would like to report? Yeah.
Mayor Beamish?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Sorry to interrupt here. Item 7.6 was missed.
We did.
Oh, dear. What was that?
The engineering award. It was a.
Oh, right. Yes. Yes. Well, let's go back and do that right now.
I apologize for interrupting, especially after the good news story there. Do you want me to briefly go into that?
Please, thank you.
For you?
I turned the page and missed it.
Thank you. So the Infrastructure Services Department often calls on consultants to aid in detailed design, preparation of tender documents, and other work with capital projects. We've done this before. This would be the 3rd time we've done this. Rather than seeking proposals from consultants for each project as it arises, we issued an RFP for general consulting services and rates from qualified consultants, with the intent that staff would be able to use a chosen consultant on an as and when needed basis. We had a number of respondents. I think it was about 9 respondents, and each of those were evaluated, and with urban systems, RFBNE, and on-site engineering coming out on top. But ultimately, staff are recommending urban systems, who not only did score the highest number of points, but probably have the most amount of experience with the town. They've worked for years with us, have an excellent knowledge of the town's infrastructure, and are really excellent to deal with. So the RFPs are scored on a number of different variables and criteria, and so cost isn't always the deciding factor, unlike a tender, which would normally go to low bid. So as I say, that's how they were scored. And the intent is that, and I'm not sure if you need to have this reflected in the resolution or not, it's not at the moment, but that staff would be able to award consulting, or have urban systems in this instance complete consulting work for them within existing budgets. So it's part of the budgets that we put forward and council have approved, that often will have that engineering component, and that staff will be able to award that up to a value of $50,000. That $50,000 is consistent with the purchasing policy, which indicates that providing we have received or we sought out at least 3 competitive, in this case, proposals, that staff are able to award it with the signature of, I believe it's the CAO and the financial, the director of finance. So the $50,000 mark is consistent with that. And then above that, to a certain value, council, we would have to bring that to council, which is also what we would be proposing to do. So this is going to help us certainly streamline our efforts, reduce the amount of work involved with putting out individual RFPs for every project we need somebody for, and also to engage with a consultant who we have been extremely satisfied with in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Council, what's your wish? Do you have any questions? See no question. Does somebody care to make the resolutions? Councilor Kroll, move the resolutions as proposed. Second by Councilor Lumley. Discussion, Council? See none. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Opposed? See none opposed. Urban Systems has a long history of the town, as Mr. Kroll says. They were the engineers for the town when back in 2002 when I started here. So they've been here for a long time. So and the interesting about Urban Systems is they don't get conflict of interest because they only work for local government. So they don't work for developers. So they're not going to run across their work or competing work within the town. They're only concerned with municipal infrastructure, which is important. So. Okay, moving on. I'm just going to go back to council reports for 1 second. I mean, anybody else report, and just highlight. The only real highlight I had was a meeting with Seashell Hospital Foundation. I'm the vice chair of the hospital board this year. So Councillor, or rather Mayor Seegers and I met with the hospital foundation earlier on, talking about plans and fundraising. And that we had the budget meetings. Seashell Chamber of Commerce AGM was an interesting meeting. Public Art Committee, we met on the 25th, and that was interesting. And I got my COVID shot 1, so that Shot 2 will come sometime in June. I think Mr. Kroll got his COVID shot as well. So I think so. The rest of you, too bad. They're all finished, all used up. We got the last 2. Gravity, youth counselor. Yeah.
On the note, on that COVID note, today was the first day that masks were mandatory, like at all times in classrooms, which is good, especially with all the increase in cases. It was definitely a little bit disappointing this past weekend, to see like the ferries, they added in more sailings because there were so many people, and I saw like a lot of people on the coast, and it was a bit scary just with all the new variants that are way more contagious, and all of these, like, we're, you've probably seen the results, just all the cases we have right now. And then Toronto or Ontario schools are closing down for 2 weeks, and they have, I think, around the same amount of cases as us. Anyways, so just that's to say, a reminder to everyone here and to tell everyone, you got to keep listening to the rules, because schools will be closed down and people are dying. So that's just my little reminder, and that I'm excited that masks are mandatory all the time in school now. So that's good.
Thank you very much for that, and bring that to our attention. Council, we're going to need a resolution to continue. And I guess I'll go to council and say, how long do you want to be here tonight? It's 9 o'clock now. We have another agenda coming, and we're not finished this agenda yet. So that, what's your wishes, council? Councilor Kroll?
Can we opt for 9:30 and see where we end up?
Okay. Somebody wish to second that? Councilor Dindrad? Okay, all in favor? It must be unanimous by council. Thank you. So we'll carry on to 9:30. Corporate officer?
I noted at the beginning of the meeting, sorry, there's some feedback there. I noticed that you made a motion to receive the bylaw, but it needs a separate resolution.
Yes, we will do that. Yeah.
Okay.
We will do that. Yeah. Go to council correspondence now. There's March 15, 22, and 29. I'm going to start off because I've flagged a number of things here just for awareness. Go to March 15th. We had two items. One was a request for a sidewalk extension on O'Shea, and Director of Infrastructure, I would ask that you would respond to that appropriately as to what the policy is and what the plans are for that area. And also,
I can do that, yes.
Yeah, we also had information about a deck on the beach. Now, that deck is located on the outside of the breakwater. The little beach that's there. If you go beyond there, you'll see a new deck that's appeared very low, and a set of stairs being constructed leading down to it. So that's a deck they're referring to. So perhaps if you haven't had a chance to look at that yet, might want to look at that and see if that is an appropriate location given the construction limitations. I'm going to go to my March 22nd. I've marked a request for funding for a group called Uncharted Waters document, from Molly Dennis and Hannah Sidden. Unless it's an application for a grant of assistance, and perhaps Director of Finance, you could refer to that one there. It's 210317, and maybe let them know what the grant of assistance application process is, and see if they would want to get involved with that. And also on that same date is a further letter on the O'Shea sidewalk extension, and a couple letters on parking up at the supportive housing. And Director of Planning has suggested it might be useful if you would have a conversation with BC Housing on that, because the parking around there is a challenge. One specifically deals with emergency vehicle parking. I see they still have a trailer on site, which may be part of a construction trailer. Maybe once that's moved off, it'll increase parking inside. But the photographs that came with this showed emergency vehicles taking over the road essentially in a response up there. So that I think that's worth looking at with them. See what BC Housing plan is for that, because they said it was all going to be bicycles. so that they probably weren't expecting bicycles coming from the ambulance service. I'm going to go to March 29, the letter from, and this is the 19th of March, letter from Leanne Johnson, Sunshine Coast Conservation Association. Refer that also to the Director of Planning to draft a response to, and I know you haven't had a chance to look at that one yet when I spoke with you last week, but we should have a response for that. And then I'm going to go to the last one on the list, and this is Janice Williams, Standards of Maintenance Bylaw. This is the one that does concern me because I'm concerned anytime any of our residents are affected by the quality of life gets affected by things outside of their control. In this case, it is a building that is deteriorating, impacting her directly as a tenant, and an owner who appears to be somewhat reluctant to do the work, or if doing the work is looking also to evict the tenant. And what I'd like to do, and Janice has asked for looking at a standard of maintenance bylaw, and there are some examples. She actually forwarded the model bylaw. There are a number of communities who do have standard of maintenance bylaws. We don't. There's both good and bad about them. So what I'd like to ask council is if council will be prepared to establish a committee, a select committee, for a short period of time to look into the options, look into the practices elsewhere, and the options for a standard of maintenance bylaw. Councillor Kroll is prepared to be on that committee. I spoke with Leanne Johnson this week as well. She has a lot of history in this area, and she would be prepared, if provided the terms of reference are understood, to be on the committee as well. But the idea would be that we would work on that and take a look at what we can reasonably do as a small community. And a big part of it comes around enforcement. We can only do so much if we can't enforce it, and we have to look at that. But the whole idea would be to ensure that rental accommodations are safe for renters and renters do not face evictions as a result of landlords' refusal to make necessary repairs. Some bylaws go beyond and actually force the work to be done. But I would like to see something done and some input from the community solicited, and a report back to us in relatively short order, at least by the 25th of June, so that we can respond to future situations. Now, I know that in this case, the tenant here is involved with the landlord-tenant branch, so that we'll be hearing on it. But I am concerned with others in the community who might be in vulnerable housing situations and at the risk of at risk from landlords not doing necessary work. So if council is prepared to do that, I would just suggest a small committee of maybe 3 people with Councillor Kroll, and we could advertise. And I think Leanne Johnson has a long history of this type of work in the Lower Mainland and elsewhere. And I'm sure there are other people in the community who would like to participate as well. So if council is prepared to do that, I would move that we establish a committee, and that was somebody second that. Councillor D'Andrade, was that second that? Discussion, council. Councillor D'Andrade.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that it would be beneficial if we could look at also, what's the provincial tax, empty homes? Sorry, I forgot the terminology, but if it could be applicable to our region, and what's the benefit? I think we have to look at like other options as well.
Possibly. Interesting, I saw an article today about that whole thing on commercial premises, where commercial tenants, commercial owners are now being charged for the airspace, not for the space that they have, but for the unused airspace above their space. And it's in the newspaper, one landlord or one tenant on 4th Avenue being charged an additional $6,000 tax for the unused space that his property owner has not developed, which is an interesting concept. This I see a fairly short, fairly specific. purpose. There are a number of bylaws out there. Burnaby has a bylaw, Victoria has a bylaw, North Vancouver has, there's a number out there. They're all somewhat different. And some are by policy. It could be done by policy, which is a little bit easier for us to deal with. And our staff just don't have the capacity. I mean, we can't keep loading more committees and more work on staff. That's why having a group of dedicated people in the community who would be interested in seeing a solution here and working towards a solution and bringing something back to council. Councillor Crowell brought this up with me several weeks ago, and I agree with him. And I think it's a good thing to go forward. And I've talked to him, and he's prepared to participate in that. So, and we would look for 2 more members. We just go out and advertise for that. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? I am. So it's 3. Councillor Lumley, are you in favor or opposed? In favor? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I know that in this particular case, and Janice Williams makes no secret of her situation. As we know, we would be very pleased to see that council is moving forward on this, even if at the cost to her, as an example, that as a small community we could do this, and that it's really important that we recognize that. So I apologize for taking up all the time. I did get my correspondence off my mind. How about the rest of you? Do you have any other correspondence, Councilor Diendrad?
Thank you. I'll start from the 29. There's a letter from TRAC with a 2021 budget recommendations. I know active transportation is a priority for council. It was also on the online survey on the strategic planning, include a desire for more and safer walking and biking paths, a desire for more recreation opportunities. So we don't need to expand on that. But TRAC suggests 5 recommendations and for this budget. So I would like, I mean, how does council feel in adopting, and perhaps there might be implications beyond, I mean, some of them are 2 years project, but I would like this to be considered in this budget if possible, right? And perhaps some feedback from staff as well, how we can implement that.
If I could, Councilor Diendrad, there's not been an official announcement yet, but the Director of Infrastructure has let me know that we have an award of about $600,000 from the province on for bike paths and stuff like that. And that's going to be part of the conversation with TRAC, is how in terms of consultation. Part of it is for looking at e-bike station parking, bike parking in Lower Gibsons, along with e-bike charging stations, but others looking at bike paths. So if we could refer that to staff to deal with TRAC on, as opposed to making a decision on it, then that how that 600,000, and there will be an official announcement come out. We read about it in the paper, but we knew the application was there and was being approved. If you're okay with that, refer that to staff.
Mayor?
Yes.
No, of course. I want this to be able to be implemented, but there's just the first recommendation. They talk about that our plan has not been updated since 2001, and without a plan, we cannot get grants. So I feel this is a catch-22. So I don't know. Maybe we will get this funding, but if we don't get, I don't want just to say, oh, so that's the kind of
we are getting the $600,000.
Oh, we are getting.
Yes, we are getting.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And as well, we did get the grant about 4 years ago for the Gibsons Way projects. I think so. That we have been successful on that. So
perfect. So, yeah, no problem. I have also on the 29. There's a letter from District of Sycamus Council, and they're requesting enforcement for the protection of waterways from aquatic invasive species. And they propose resolutions here, and we just need to support them. I think this is really important to know. We all know the issues of invasive species, and in aquatic environment they can spread even further. We do have lakes. Anyways, this could impact our whole province. So I think it's important what they are asking, some enforcement. So the watercraft, they can be cleaned before. It's just some enforcement, right, in this regard. And there's some lakes actually they are completely taken by invasive species. So I think this is a really important consideration, the resolution support.
Your motion is the council endorse the Sycamoose resolution number 21068.
Please.
Okay, seconded by Councilor Ladwig. Further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. And we'll write a letter to Sycamoose, let them know we've endorsed that. Thank you.
And I have one more, actually. There's also, well, two more. There's one letter from the Sunshine Coast BC Association of Farmers Market, and they were also asking us to write a letter to Honorable Adrian Dix, just to continue support funding for the farmers market nutrition coupon programs. We, as council, we signed a letter for food security. This is a really good initiative. It's getting low-income people with some healthy food. So again, if I can make a motion that council direct staff to send a thank you letter to the Honorable Adrian Dix, Minister of Health, for continued support and expansion of the Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program.
Seconded by Councilor Ladwig. All in favor? Thank you. That's approved. Thank you.
And then finally, there's one. Sorry, I have to find. Can I come back later? I need just to find the file.
And unless anybody, Councilor, anybody else have any correspondence to discuss? Yeah, Councilor Kroll.
I think you covered them, most of them, Mayor Beamish. The only one I was going to mention is Mayor Mike Little of the District of North Vancouver asked that we support the city's LEAD campaign, and we've already done that. And I just sent a note back to him saying that we did it with this Help Cities LEAD, plus the PACE program, plus we forwarded it to the regional district and the district of Seashalt.
Good, thank you. Councilor Lumley.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on the letter that was written in French. I couldn't read it.
Yeah, and we don't have immediate translation. Councilor D'Andrade.
Okay, I found it. It's a request for support for delivering community power. It's a letter from the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, and they talk about a visionary program for Canada Post to confront climate change, promote better access to expanded services, bring financial inclusion to unbanked and underbanked communities, and address other social inequalities, all by making the most of our existing public postal service network. I fully support that because obviously we need certain government services, and it is a priority. And they propose here a series of motions, and they actually have a letter support delivering community power. So
your motion is
that the town of Gibsons, that council supports these motions, and I think we
seconded by
mail, yeah, to the president of Canadian Union of Postal Workers.
Seconded by Councilor Kroll. Further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That's approved. Thank you. Council, we have two pieces of correspondence on the agenda packet itself. One is from David Black, Commonwealth Games Bid Committee, and he would like to recommend that we look at supporting a bid as a part of a economic stimulus activity for the province. And how does council feel? Letter of support. Councilor Ladwig.
I've debated this because I think although supporting and showcasing your city on the international stage comes with consequences that you don't always think about, like affordable housing, for example. And so although it does generate a lot of revenue, there is unforeseen or unanticipated impacts at times. That's debated. You can go online and find lots of articles that say that happens and lots that don't. But considering the vulnerability of our city right now, it's a little bit of a risk for me and from my perspective. And I think there's lots of ways that I would love to see our premier support tourism at a more local level. I'd love to see us promoting people going salmon fishing up in Telegraph Cove, or grizzly bear watching up in the Central Coast, or horseback riding in the Chilcotin Plateau. But that's not what's being promoted. And so when you advertise a beautiful city like Vancouver internationally to the wealthy folks that come here, they don't just come once, and they often buy real estate because it is lovely, and who wouldn't if they could. So I do think we need to think carefully about this. And if we do support it, I think our letter should state very strongly that we need to see reserves going to affordable housing. I read one article where they're talking about any residential apartments that were going to be built for the athletes and their support staff would turn into rentals. I don't know if that's true, but like those are the types of statements I would want to see in our letter. That there needs to be an acknowledgement that there is at times or can be impacts from these types of activities, and that we need to be thinking about that carefully.
Good conditions to set in the letter, that conditional support.
Conditional support, yes.
So, yeah, I think that's very wise. I mean, you did recall the Olympic Village up in Whistler. We have parts of that in Seychelles now with one of the organizations that was trucked up here and reset up in Seychelles. So, yeah. So would you make a motion to do a conditional support with putting some of those social caveats in there? Yeah.
Yes. Do I have to think of the wording? So yeah, I would make a motion to support. Let me pull up the. Sorry, too many things open at the same time. Sorry, I had other things open.
Page 89. Yeah. How about if we ask staff to prepare a draft letter to come back to council next meeting?
I would prefer that, to be honest, but yes, but I would make a motion that we support David Black's request for the Commonwealth Games bid committee to host the Commonwealth Games in BC conditionally, on the condition that significant investment goes towards affordable housing reserves, rental accommodations for British Columbians, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that you'd like the letter to come back to council to the next meeting for review.
Yes, and I would like the letter to come back to council for review.
Seconded by Council Kroll. Any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is basically for information. This is from Mickey McCartney, the Regional Director of CAPU on City Studios Sunshine Coast. City of Studios is a program that CAPU has going, and there's a number of them actually around the world, where the local university campus provides resource to the local community for projects. Basically, much like having an intern from a university program, a summer intern. In this particular case, we met with Mayor Seegers, myself, and Chair Pratt, and talked about what is possible. At this point in time, the regional district is going to take the lead on this and submitting a proposal back relative to looking for a seconded student as a project for the student to work on basic elements of regional growth strategy and looking at what the scope of that is and how that can be implemented. So we're waiting to hear back from the regional district CAO as to how that would be proposed and back. I haven't seen that draft or anything come from that, but I was just informed that that's what has been decided to go at that basis right now. We may come up with a project locally that we might want to have an intern work on and we're certainly welcome to do that. They are looking at for some budget support, but we don't have to make that decision right now. We'll just wait and see what comes back from the regional district. Council, have any questions on that? Councilor Ladwig?
No questions. I was just going to say I support it. I think it sounds like a neat project.
It's a neat project, and I know North Vancouver is doing it, and they actually have been doing it for a while, so there's a series of projects. And okay, if we could go on to 11.1, short-term capital borrowing bylaw, GDU, and Director of Finance, do you have anything you want to tell us about on that?
No, Mr. Mayor, it's just being presented for adoption at this meeting. It does include the statutory approval that we received from the Minister or the Inspector of Municipalities.
Thank you. So it's ready to go. So somebody move adoption of bylaw number 1287, 2021. Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor Ladwig, thank you. Further discussion, Council? You've seen this before. All in favor? Thank you. Now we got, I'd like to move on. We do have inquiry section, but at this point in time, we also have 7 minutes left on our time before we have to make another resolution. So Council want to go for a 10-minute inquiry section and then carry on, or do you want to pass on inquiries tonight and go straight to a motion to close? Councillor Lumley?
I vote cut it down to 5.
Okay, 5-minute inquiry section. Okay. All right. So corporate officer, I'll leave you to open the doors for a 5-minute inquiry section.
You have Suzanne Sanger joining you.
Thank you. Welcome back, Suzanne Singer.
Hey, thanks everybody. I'll try to be quick. I have a concern regarding Director Newman's response to Councillor Ladwig's question about the DPA2 permit on Block 7. Development permit areas are established under the Local Government Act. And the Local Government Act does not provide opportunity for the local government to regulate activity on lands outside a designated development permit area. So I'm confused by Director Newman's comments, because it sounded like he was saying that the law allows you to regulate the use of land or tree cutting on lands outside a DPA2, but that's not my understanding at all of what the Local Government Act permits. So maybe could we get some clarification on that, please?
Director of Infrastructure, are you able to respond to that now?
Yep, sorry, I'm just trying to get myself on video. Maybe not. You can hear me okay? Oh, yes. There we go. This is we're talking about the tree bylaw, not the DP. And the tree bylaw allows or makes reference to the trees being exempt if a development permit has been issued, which addresses the removal of the trees, and the development permit that was issued did address the removal of those trees. And so, as I say, it's the it was a provision in the tree bylaw.
Just for clarification, really quickly, my understanding of the question posed by the councillor was, does the DPA2 apply to the lands, or the permit apply to the lands outside of the DPA2 environmentally sensitive area? Does that development permit have any bearing on those lands outside of the DPA2? And the Local Government Act does not allow a DPA2 permit to regulate lands outside of the area, or else, I mean, it just wouldn't make sense.
I understand that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the tree bylaw, not the DP. And so the tree bylaw says that we do not need a tree permit if that has been addressed. And so the removal of trees outside of the DP area was addressed in the Diamond Head report, which was an appendices to the permit and formed part of that permit. And yes, I do understand that it does not regulate tree cutting outside of a development permit area, but that's not what the bylaw is saying.
So development permits don't apply to lands outside of development permit areas.
Development permits, the development permit that was issued addressed the report from Diamond Head addressed the issue of tree removal and talked about compensation, et cetera, in the report. And so I understand what you're saying, and no, the development permit was not trying to regulate trees outside of the development permit area. The tree bylaw indicates that if a development permit was issued in which the removal of those trees were addressed, a permit was not required. And that was the case.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, that takes care of that 5 minutes. Okay, so we'll go on then, look for a resolution to motion to close the meeting. Recommendation to close the meeting in accordance with sections 91 EIK, and I believe corporate officer, there was another section.
Yes, you have closing under section 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. In your agenda is also listed E. Also G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality needs to be added. And then the rest are there, I and K. So you have 5 grounds for closing today.
Thank you very much. Motion to close the meeting. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor of closing the meeting? Thank you. Gravity, thank you very much for your time tonight. And again, wear that mask. Yeah, good on you. Take care. Thank you. And thank you everybody who sat in on our meeting tonight and observed or participated. We hold these meetings in public for you. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you. And have a good evening. We are going to cut you off and we're going to continue to meet. Thank you. Okay, corporate officer, you let us know when we're no longer live on YouTube, please.
Yes, I'm just clearing the last people who are lingering here.
And we're going to need to extend again.
We're going to need to extend again. Now, we could also shorten the agenda and just say, okay, there's the items we need to address tonight. One being the personnel issue, if we want to move forward with that.
All attendees have left the meeting and the meeting is now locked. I'm going to turn off the